If you are just starting out on your own frugal lifestyle, or maybe you just want to clip the edge off your bills a bit and get your outgoing expenses down, you can do quite a lot by reducing your energy and water usage, because most of us are using too much. We probably don't realise how much we're using, and there are all sorts of ways that you can cut your usage of things down and minimise those bills a bit more. But there comes a point where no matter what you do, your bill is still there. And if you are on a really tight budget, or you are a low energy user and you don't see why you're paying such a huge amount of money for your energy and your water based on how much you use, the thing is, the system is rigged against you. And there's one reason for that, and it's called standing charges. And standing charges are the, I suppose you could say, that's what you pay for the privilege of being connected to the system. So gas, electricity and water all have a standing charge which is payable every month, and it's a rate that is calculated per day, and you have to pay that no matter how much energy or water you use. And we were talking about this recently on one of my recent posts about how I managed to get my water bill so low. And when I talk about my water bill, I mean my usage. I don't mean the entire bill, because of course there's a whole section of my bill which I can't do anything about, and that's the standing charge. That's completely out of my power. There's nothing I can do about it. So I've made some notes. I've got some figures here to give you an idea of how this affects low users or people who are trying to cut their bills and find they've reached a point where they can't cut them anymore. And it's because of the things that you can't control. So water here in the UK is broken into two sections, and that's your fresh water and then that's your waste. So that's the sewerage and all that sort of stuff. So my usage is very low, and I will put a link somewhere up here so that you can go back and watch my post about why my low water bill is so low, if you haven't already seen it. So I have a smart meter or a water meter, for my water, and they used to come and read it twice a year, and now they're reading it 6 times a year. I've had 3 changes to my bills already this year, and I don't know why they're doing that. I don't know what's changed apart from them just putting the bills up. So I've had a look at my usage, and I've made my calculations based on the entire year to date. So for my water bill, that is January into July. And my bill already says, when you open up the bill, it tells me the calculations for things. So the standing charge for the year, this is the whole year, on my fresh water is £24.46, which doesn't sound like a lot. And then the wastewater, the calculation for standing charge for the year is £150.05. And you might think, well, that's not a lot for a year, really, is it? But everyone pays the same rate. I mean, I don't know if it changes per water company. It might do. But when you break it down, so this is what I'm actually paying, and this is why I have a problem with the standing charge. My average freshwater usage cost to me for using the water is £1.44 per month. And that's worked out again across January to July, because that's the bills that I have. The standing charge works out per month at £2.03. So that's almost double what I'm actually using in terms of paying for the actual physical water I used. For the wastewater, my average usage being charged for what I physically use is £3.83. But my standing charge per month is £12.50. So my freshwater standing charge is almost twice what I use, and my wastewater is 3 times what I use. And that doesn't seem fair, because you will have people who are paying or using a lot more water than me, and they may be on water meters, they may not, but they're still paying the same rate as me. And people talk about it less with water than they do with their energy usage. And this is something that Martin Lewis of Money Saving Expert has talked about a lot, and he's been trying to campaign to get Ofgem to change the way this works. So I've also done the same thing for my energy. And again, I have calculated this based on, this is actually January to August, because I've already had my August bill through. That came through on the 14th of the month. It is now the 18th of August as I am recording this. So I'm just into the next bill cycle for my gas and electric. So I've calculated all the electricity that I've physically burnt, so to speak. That's what I physically used. I have a column for the standing charges per month, and again they are calculated on a daily basis, and then I have a line for the VAT, which is calculated on top of that. So my actual physical electricity usage so far for the whole of 2025 comes to £106.93. The standing charge on top of that comes to £118.48. So the standing charges for my electric are double what I'm actually paying for my energy. And that's why we have this problem where it doesn't matter how little energy I use, I will always end up paying more than I feel that I should be paying, or more than I can afford, because these standing charges are set in stone and you can't skip them. The VAT on top of that lot comes to £11.28. And if my standing charges were cheaper, then that VAT would go down as well. For gas, now gas, well, I use far less gas than I do electricity, because the only thing that runs on gas in my home at the moment is my hob. I have a gas hob, an electric oven, and I don't have my hot water boiler on at all. That is switched off at the wall. I have an electric shower, and when I want water around the home that's hot, because I would normally only need it to make cups of tea and to do the washing up at the end of the day, and it's only me at home and I don't need a lot of water, so I tend to boil a kettle on the hob. So there's no reason for me to have hot running water in my flat at the moment. So far my gas usage for the whole of 2025 comes to £26.36. That's all I have physically used. My standing charge, however, comes to £73.60, which is almost triple the value of my actual gas usage. So that's where most of my money goes. And the VAT for that comes to £5. And again, if I wasn't paying for the standing charge, or not as much of the standing charge, that VAT would go down. So you can see the problem here is that numbers just don't add up, and everything is stacked against the consumer, against the customer, and it's all in favour of the companies. Now, where the water's concerned, lots of problems with water companies, particularly where they're sticking sewage into the sea, they're not fixing pipes, and the people who are paying for that are the consumers with their standing charges, and they keep putting the usage up as well. So things might be changing. They've been talking for a while about how this can change, and Martin Lewis was talking to Ofgem about this, about having a system whereby for low users, instead of being charged a standing charge per day, the standing charge is rolled on to the per unit usage, so that you're paying a higher per unit cost on your gas and electric, but you're still only using what you use. I don't know how they'll calculate that, but that's one way they're looking at it. And then for higher users, for people that do use a lot and maybe people who have medical equipment at home that requires electricity and things like that, they will just stay the same. But they're talking about creating an option whereby you can choose to pay effectively a standing charge within your unit rate and then have it as it is now for people with much higher usage. And there's a document that was published in February where they are now in discussion with energy companies about this, and that they want to get this new system implemented over the winter period of 2025-2026. Whether that happens, I don't know, because people have been asking about this for a long time. And you can find the document online. I'll leave a link to the document I've just shown you in the notes below, so you can go ahead and read that yourself. So whether that's going to change, I don't know, and how it will change. Mentioned within that document is that if someone's usage is really low, they will cap the standing charge if it's charged per unit, so that you always have to be paying up to a certain amount. So let's say you only use 3 units of gas a year on your second home. They wouldn't let you just pay the equivalent within the 3 units for your standing charge for being connected to the system. They would find a way to stop you going so low that you are literally just paying for your usage. But if the calculations are properly done, then this should be a benefit to low users like me, but also people who use less because they're scared to spend more. Because all the money that they would use on energy is going into a standing charge, which they don't really effectively benefit from. So if you're not putting your heating on at all during the winter because you're scared of your gas bill looking high, and if they took away the standing charge paid per day and put it onto your gas unit, that might allow you to put your heating on a little bit during the winter rather than not at all. So we'll see how these calculations work out and whether it really is done in favour of lower users. I would hate to think that the amount of money that they will put up each unit, so they can still keep clawing back as much of the standing charge as they can, might make it not worth it. But I hope they don't rig it so that effectively they are getting all their standing charge regardless. It seems incredibly unfair for people that are very, very high users to be paying the same standing charge rate as somebody who's too scared to put their heating on or switch their lights on, or maybe is trying to be better with energy. We should be rewarding people for using less energy. So one of the reasons I like to use less energy is because I hope that it's better for the environment. I hope that it's better that I don't use tons of gas, loads of water. Hosepipe bans are everywhere at the moment. And when you're not rewarded for trying to do your best, they just keep on taking the money regardless. I cannot get my gas, electricity and water usage down any more than it already is. I am right at rock bottom in terms of my utilities usage. I can't do any more. And the problem is the standing charge, not my usage. So they need to do something about this. I hope that this change that they talk about implementing gets implemented, and that it will benefit people like me who are using small amounts of energy, because they really need to do something about the system. It's not fair. It's stacked against people who either don't have the income or are just trying to do better. And they need to change that. Anyway, so I thought I would talk about that as a follow-on from that water, that post about my water bills. As I say, I will post a link to the Ofgem document below, and then you can go and have a look at that for yourself. I'm sure that if it comes into play or as it gets closer, there will be updates on the Money Saving Expert site. And I think that you can subscribe to the Ofgem website so that you get updates to this sort of thing as and when they come out. So fingers crossed that during the winter period this now starts to happen. I'm not going to hold my breath because Ofgem really do drag their feet, but I'm hopefully the pressure that comes from people like Martin Lewis and consumers will start to have an effect, and that we will get the change that everyone deserves. So I hope that was interesting. Do add your comments and things below. I'd be interested to hear what you think about this. I've had some very interesting comments on the previous video, and the conversation has been really interesting. And let's keep going with it. And if I see any updates, I will let you know as and when they come up. So thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye bye.